Welcome back. I'm trying to finish up Roottreemania. So for those of you who have been watching the other videos in the series, we finished the original Roottree story, which took us to the death of Carl Roottree, his wife, and his 3 daughters in '98. Now the Roottreemania is a continuation of that story, talking about what's happened since '98, and also talking about previous affairs and hidden family secrets from the 20s, the 40s, and the 70s and 80s. So we got pretty far along last time. I think we finished almost all of the family tree except for the Elias branch. So I'm just going to go over a really quick recap, like really fast, and then also make sure I explore this room a little bit more. I think I've clicked on everything, but just to make sure. So the top half we did in the previous playthrough, but we've confirmed Stephanie Landon, Mary Brian Jones had baby Carol. We confirmed all of the affairs from the 70s and 80s under Guy Hudson. He definitely got around from what we can see. His first affair started with she was secretary at the time, who worked at the Roottrees Candy Company and produced this rapper, David Fellows. He had another affair with a different secretary, Christine Farrow, who married Stephen Garland and had her 2 kids. While opening up candy factories in other countries, he also had multiple children. So he had Min Ling when he opened up Roottree China and slept with her mom, who now owns a textile factory. From Roottrees Brazil, he slept with a media mogul and had a news anchor. And then he had his final affair with Susan Ford, who was also at one point a secretary for the candy company and had twins, Heather Ford and Melissa Ford, who are still students at the time of this affair. We also figured out that Miracle Roottree had an affair in the 40s with Mary Beth Quaker, who ended up being Mary Beth Clementine at some point, who was a musician who's performed at his church. He had 2 kids with Mary Beth, Stuart Clementine and Mark Clementine. Mark was a pilot until he led a life of crime and had a bunch of kids himself. So now we're going all the way back to the original guy, Elias Roottree, who had the first affair in 21. So we don't have anything filled out in this one, so this is where we're starting. For this episode, there's 10 people to fill in, and it will be 100% done. So I think, and there's another top secret folder. So don't know what that's going to be. I think to get started, there's no new evidence to touch. Everything we have is what we have. And we've searched all these people. Like, I don't think there's anything new yet. So we're going to go back and start with Elias. Since he's the original, it would make sense to start with him. So they were never really celebrities. Roottrees Candy Company, he was a family man. The book kind of changed that for him. We looked up the farm. We couldn't find anything new about the farm. Now, Bess Williams, she had wrote a book about him originally. This page has been updated because before we didn't have a lot of information on Bess. So Bess Williams is an author born in the late 1800s. She lived just outside of Miami and tragically died young in a major hurricane that struck in 1926. She has a minor history with the Roottrees. Her only notable book, Family Man, is considered blatant propaganda about Elias Roottree. It's all but forgotten until recently when it was re-released at the height of Roottreemania. There's a site dedicated to hurricane statistics that also mentioned Bess Williams. The Bucador Library, not far from where she lived, was partially destroyed in the hurricane. When they rebuilt, they named this nonfiction section after her. The library was expanded again in 1950 and then closed in 1963 when multiple larger libraries opened in the surrounding areas that made it redundant. Okay. Now, Family Man's the name of the book. We can search it. It says Family Man, the Roottree legacy was poorly received. the few copies of the original published in 1920, but it was republished by the same publishing company that printed Lauren's diaries for schools. Let's copy this and we can check it in the library. Since it got republished, there's a chance that it, there's a copy with more information. So it's a softcover book. It's nonfiction, a reprinting of an old book about Elias Roottree. During your first search, this book had a picture of the farm on the cover. This version now includes a portrait of Elias. Definitely want that picture. So the dictionary defines propaganda as information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or a point of view. But if that were to replace the definition with a picture, it'd be a picture of this book. This book tells you nothing new about Elias, and from what you know of his true feelings towards some of his extended family, you're not sure it tells you anything new about Elias either. Anything true about Elias either. The reissue of this book was so lazy that they reused the famous picture of Elias from the Business Watch, whose copyright had expired. The best thing going for it is it was only 85 pages long. Okay, so we didn't learn anything new here, but we do have his picture, so that's nice. I guess it's something to work with here. Back to the computer. I don't want to look at her again. I want to go back to this, and I want to go back. Now, it mentioned the library. Maybe they have copies of more books. The Bookador Library no longer exists. You find multiple libraries in the area. According to the website for the library system in Miami, the building it once sat on is now the Miami Print Museum. Searching for the Miami Print Museum, you come across their website. It states their hours and lists of exhibits. The building is very small, admission is free, and they only have room for a few different displays. One of the exhibits is in their courtyard, including a fountain as well as a statue from an unknown author. The picture has been added to your evidence. Another is a printing press that is used by the Miami Sunday, a now defunct weekly newspaper. The last is the original print of Cuba by Cubans, an art book. Let's look at the evidence first. So this is the statue of a young woman with her hair braided in front of the museum. Okay. Not super helpful, but maybe that's a descendant of his. Let's search the Miami Print Museum. Oh, no, that doesn't give me anything. Okay. The Miami Sunday. Can we search that? The Miami Sunday has no records that you can find online or in your periodical search. It merged with another periodical and became the Miami Mercury Sunday, which folded after only a year. Okay, so the Miami Mercury Sunday was a newspaper that lasted only a year, from 1949 to 1950. You find a small website about quirky printing history facts that mention that the Miami Mercury Sunday was the outcome of merging of two smaller, failing newspapers. This resulted in one larger failing newspaper, which was only notable to the author because by combining the names in the way they did, it was tied for the longest title for an American newspaper at the time. So we know the Miami Sunday and we know the Miami Mercury Sunday. Maybe we need to search the Miami Mercury, because that's something we haven't searched before it got merged with Sunday. Okay, oh, there we go. The Miami Mercury is a now defunct newspaper that merged with the Miami Sunday. The resulting newspaper, the Miami Mercury Sunday, went out of business. Okay, so now we have a periodical. We're going to go back into that and now type in Bess Williams. The Miami Mercury has an article about Bess Williams' section in the Bookador Library when it was being built in 1828. It mentions that Bess's young son, now an orphan, was in attendance during the dedication. It also has a later mention from 1949, the last year the paper existed, about a bidding war for a construction expansion of the library in 1950. The bidding was won by the Wildcat Construction and includes a new statue, fountain, and a second room that would double its shelf count. So we know Bess had a son He was orphaned because she died in the hurricane. Okay. Wildcat Construction is listed in some historical records as having worked on buildings in Miami, Florida. Ceased operations in 1960s. So that's not super helpful. Oh, Wildcat. I put cast. Maybe that's part of the problem. Okay, Wildcat Construction was mentioned once in a live article you already seen. It was also mentioned earlier in 1947 under the headline Constructing a Better World. Frank Wildcat Williams left Florida in 1941, a construction worker and returned a hero. He won the Navy Cross for his bravery and sacrifice, having carried a fellow soldier to safety under heavy Nazi fire. Now, he and his wife Ophelia are carrying their fellow soldiers through tough times at home. Wildcat Construction is Frank's company, focused on creating opportunities for soldiers finding difficulty getting back to normal. Ophelia has handled outreach to the wives of local veterans, who are often able to provide insight into their husbands' needs and conditions. She has, through such outreach, found 13 veterans of the war to serve as Frank's employees. The community support has been unending and overwhelmingly positive. They've gotten to the point where if Frank bids on a project, other local companies have decided to step back and let his soldiers handle it. This has become a bit of a sore spot for local politicians and business owners, as the bids are often not as low as they expected. The problem for them is that essentially Frank has a selective monopoly, but any attempt to circumvent it will cause an uproar and be seen as being un-American. It is uncertain what will happen of the Wildcat Construction, but at least for now, we're rooting for them. He's probably worth searching. So Frank Wildcat Williams is listed on a few different military history sites. He was awarded a Navy Cross Medal in the World War II, and the story goes that even after being struck in the arm with a bullet, he managed to carry a fellow soldier through enemy territory on his shoulders for over 2 miles. He died in 1996 in a retirement community in Sweetwater, Florida. His obituary on the website of a local news channel was written by his surviving family, also sheds some light on his personal life. He grew up an orphan because his family died in a hurricane when he was very young. He could barely remember his mom and had no memory of his dad. After the war, he ran a construction company that mainly hired World War II veterans and did a lot of jobs in and around the greater Miami area. He was born a joker and the shiny light to those veterans who needed it most. An anecdote mentioned was he used to insist he married his wife Ophelia as a matter of courtesy and convenience. She wouldn't have to change her last name. The picture is attached of Frank in his youth, juggling hammers in front of one of his construction sites, as he was often known to do. According to the article, he was survived by Ophelia as well as his daughters Barb and Sharon Williams. Okay. So this is a young Frank, but no one else. But the library already existed at the time he was taking the picture. So that kind of helps us in a way, but not a ton. So he had an affair with someone, and this produced someone. Because we know he has 2 kids, is what he's saying. That he has the 2 girls, Barb and Sharon Williams. So there's only space for 2 people on the tree here. So it seems like they're at the bottom of the tree. So it'd be Ophelia Williams, Frank Williams, Barb and Sharon Williams. But we're missing something. I guess it's just not clear. So Bob and Sharon Williams, I guess, will be worth searching, just because I'm unclear. So Barb Williams. Okay, let's try Ophelia. Sharon? No. Okay, so I don't know. Oh, there we go. Barb Williams is a motivational speaker, and she has a website that explains the services she offers. Her company's address is listed as Coconut Grove, Florida. Okay, Barb. So she's a motivational speaker. Includes 3 different testimonials from Greta Jones, Vic Elmsworth, and Isabel Crosby. Okay, so she's a public speaker. That's helpful. Let's look up some of these people who are in the article. Okay, so Greta's name is way too common. What about Vic Elmsworth? Vic Elmsworth, according to the personal page, is apparently one of 3 brothers. All 3 are contributors to a newspaper called the Kiowa Falls Gazette. And he tends to focus on the more southeastern United States. All of the articles he's written are archived on his site, including a long-form version of a review for Barb Williams' motivational show from 1997. According to Victor, he has seen Barb talk more than once. On this particular occasion, Barb's talk was at a very large church, and it was clear that she was an expert at matching the presentation of her concepts for any particular crowd, because she received a standing ovation. Barb started the story with a story about loss, specifically loss of bicyclists who had been hit by a car. She spoke about the death of any person as death, darkness, and their loved ones. A cold, empty void that begins to creep into a space where there was once light. But because the light could never return exactly how it once was, she said the only option is to nurture new sources of light to fight back against the darkness. Her conclusion was that finding the hidden meanings and tragedy is the most important thing we can do. She used multiple biblical comparisons and finished by looping back to her original story and how she personally began to come around to this ideology. The biker who died was her son-in-law, and the Lanes Across America charity was created to fill the newfound darkness her daughter experienced. The charity, was the light that began to fill the void, and she was doing everything she could to nurture it. Lanes Across America, or LAA, is a charity focused on adding bike lanes to major cities. The pages and pages of news articles that mention Lanes Across America all have a similar summary in them. LAA, formerly LAM, was founded in 1987 after the death of Drew Smith. Drew was biking home from work when he was hit by a car. Ever since then, Lanes Across America has grown, and they now have offices in over 12 major metropolitan areas, including Miami, where the charity began. So I'm assuming that she said this is her son or son-in-law. This is a partial wedding picture from the website for the charity Lanes Across America. The rest of the wedding party is cropped out. The charity was founded after the death of Drew Smith. Now, it used to be called something else. According to the article, it was LAM. So maybe it started off as Lanes Across Miami. Why don't we just type in LAM and see what happens? Oh, okay. That's okay. Never mind. Lanes. Okay. When you search Lanes Across Miami, it does narrow it down. You get some additional information. Lanes Across Miami was formed in 1987. And then became Lanes Across America in 1994. It was founded by Sharon Smith. After the death of her husband, Sharon and some other board members stepped down in 1992, and the current leadership took over. One of the oldest articles has a full uncropped version of the same wedding picture from the LAA website. It seems that after Sharon left LAM, they began to crop her and the rest of the wedding party out of the photo to focus solely on Drew, who was the face of the charity. Where's the full? Okay. So if that's him, this would be Sharon. That would be the mom. I don't know who this is in the corner here. Okay, so back to her motivational speech. We looked up Vic. We looked up. Oh, did we look up Isabel Crosby? Nothing related to that. Let's look up WQTZ. Greta Jones is, according to the flyer in your possession, the morning news anchor for a news station called WQTV 12. Unfortunately, they have no online presence whatsoever. You do see it listed on a giant list of television call signs next to the city Springfield under the heading Effingham County. You may need to do a deeper dive on a specific city or state and see if any locals have discussed the news in that area. Okay, well, let's try Effingham County. Effingham County is the name of two different counties in the United States, one in Georgia and one in Illinois. Well, Springfield is in Illinois, so let's try. Springfield is the capital of Illinois. Let's try Georgia. There is a Springfield in Effingham. Okay, so we're getting a lot. So let's try Springfield, Georgia. We're getting we're all around it. When refining the search, you come to television in and around Springfield, Georgia. You come across a website that lists different channels available. The list seems to only feature broadcasts with female news anchors. The person who runs the website has ranked each using 3 categories. One of the entries is Channel 12. The news anchor list is Greta Flores. So Greta Jones used to be Greta Flores, I guess. So Greta Flores is a news anchor who used to go by Greta Jones before her divorce. Compared to the ordeal you've gone through to simply figure out her current name, it was way easier than you expected to find out that she has a website of all of her accomplishments. She's apparently the MC for an all-female speaking tour in 1977. The tour was called Storytellers of Sisterhood, the Mothers and Daughters of Earth. You do a search for it, and it seems some of the stories were compiled into a book simply titled 25 Stories of Sisterhood by Alia Hale. Okay. Let's copy that. And we'll look it up in the library. Okay. So published in 1986, this is an anthology of stories told on a few different Storytellers of Sisterhood's tours. They contain direct transcripts of the most well-received stories told on stage. Alia Hale is the editor, not the sole author. One of the stories by Barb Williams has been added to your evidence. So Barb is very popular. Oh, this is one of the stories. So the story is called The Beauty and the Brat. Barb Williams had a transcript of the story she told on stage, published in the book. The first part of her story focused on 2 16-year-old girls. My sister Sherry was a brat, always sulking, often disobedient, never on time. She borrowed my things without asking and even ran away from home, only to sneak back the next day like nothing had changed. My daughter Sharon, on the other hand, was a beautiful person. She had excellent marks in school, was intensely artistic and creative, and even volunteered at an animal rescue. She continues to tell stories of the 2 girls until she shifts the narrative. What's the difference between Sherry the brat and Sharon the beauty? Is it nature, nurture, better education, different opportunities? The answer is nothing. There was no difference because my daughter and my sister are the same girl. Barb reveals that her daughter was a result of an unexpected pregnancy when she was only 15. I met a boy at the country fair. Unlike us, he lived in a nice part of town. He went to the good school. To a teenage girl, it was like a fairy tale, but there were boxes all over his house. He was moving in 3 days. Those 3 days were heaven to me. The last night, he surprised me again. He told me he could actually come see me again soon. He planned to return to visit his grandparents. I thought I was giving him a reason to keep his promise. I never saw him again, and when I finally got desperate enough to ask around, a friend of a friend told me he hadn't even given me his real last name. Barb also talks about when she found out she was pregnant. I was convinced my life was over, but my parents took charge. I had to live at home and work a part-time job, but they removed the burden of motherhood. I managed to scrape out a degree in English, and as far as my daughter was concerned, I was her much older sister. Barb used the story to come to a conclusion. When I was younger, I thought my sister was a brat, and I wasn't wrong, but she ran away from home to work at that animal shelter. She borrowed my clothes for presentations at school, and her creativity allowed her to open up Sherry's hair. It took me far too long to realize the beauty was always there too. In fact, the brat and the beauty exist in all of us. It was my inner brat that kept me blind to the truth. I'd like to say it's the beauty in me that was finally able to see what was missing. I implore you to call upon the beauties in yourselves whenever the brat tries to take hold. That was a very long story. But her daughter opened up a store, it sounds like. So there's a Sherry's Hair in Orlando. The owner of the business is listed as Sherry. I'm not even going to try to say her last name. Sherry has a large van. On the weekends, you can bring the style of Brittany, Christina, or even Rachel to your door. The About Sherry section is very, very long and presented as one paragraph with multiple run-on sentences and no pictures. You get the sense that if she were doing your hair, she'd be doing a lot of talking. It also mentions that her husband, Pete, was her late husband's college roommate. She and he never spent any significant time together until she became a widow, and they built a charity together. They left the charity behind because it was growing beyond their ability to run it. She also brags about her kids, Tony, Mark, and Cricket. Her oldest, Tony, seems to get the short end of the stick. His two listed accomplishments are that he's the oldest and that he's a straight-A student. Mark, on the other hand, has multiple baseball accomplishments listed. Apparently, his Little League team is nationally recognized. Cricket York is near the end and has an entire section dedicated to her. She's an actress on a local television show called Liberty Library, and the reason Sherry relocated from Miami to Orlando. Sherry, in addition to being hireable to come do your due, is a stylist for the show. The passage also mentions that her agent recommended her to change her last name to York because it's easier to pronounce. So her last name isn't York anymore. Let's look up this library, because I want to know what the show. Liberty Library is a children's show filmed at a studio in Orlando, Florida. It's been on the air since 1991. In the show, multiple adults and children interact with different animal puppets in a small town called Liberty. Unlike some other popular shows involving non-human performers, this one isn't funded by the public. Instead, it's paid for by donations from businesses related to education. This includes textbooks manufacturers like Rhythmic, tutoring companies like EduC, 82U, and a few other known publishers of picture books. From what you can find, it's syndicated in a few markets across southern United States and in New Hampshire for some reason. Like most other children's entertainment, so many of those that grew up with it tend to have fond memories. That works in your favor because the show has been documented by a few fan sites. There's even a Liberty Library web ring, although it only has 3 entries. You click through the sites in the ring and find that Cricket York joined the cast in 1997 at the age of 5 and is still a current cast member. A picture of Cricket from one of her first episodes has been added to evidence. Okay, Cricket. This is a promotional shot of Cricket York and the puppet Poof-tail from 1997 when she was on the show Liberty Library. According to the site you found it on, the theme of the episode tackled why some people needed glasses. Alright, sounds like a pretty standard kids show. Fortunately, I don't know where that puts her on the paper. She has to be down here somewhere. Because if not, it doesn't make any sense. Alright, back to the paper. We got a lot of information. We need to look up some of these companies. Roottreemania is a math textbook publishing program. They were in the news last year when a primetime news program did a full comparison of their 4th edition textbooks and their 5th edition textbooks. Schools were complaining that the 2 editions were remarkably similar, but yet Roottreemania was charging almost double for the newer edition than they had the previous one. The news program announced that between the 2 books there were only 16 total changes. The most notable was that the cover was changed from a picture of a water droplet creating centric rings on a lake to a close-up of a feather. The other 15 were all instances of changing 4th to 5th. This even led to the geometry problem where the book asked students to calculate the 5th side of a rectangle. Nobody associated with Roottreemania seems to be related to the search. Okay, let's look up them. EduC 82U is a tutoring service. They have a deal with Liberty Library and feature some of the actors from the show in pictures on their website. According to the site, they actually provide tutoring for all the actors and actresses on the show to accommodate their shooting schedule. Included is Cricket York, who was seen in a photo labeled Cricket and Her brothers ready to learn from one of her talented tutors. You don't find much else about the site except there seems to be a small subsection under Livery Library fans who are deeply unsettled by the company's logo that would appear after the credits of each episode. Someone writes, I was terrified of the little girl and the logo. She looked like some kind of demon doll, and I would race to the TV every day to switch the dial before her creepy laugh came on. That was random. So if this is Cricket, York, and her brothers, are they actors too? I feel like I'm missing something. I think we have some information, but not a lot of information. So I think going back up here, because I'm assuming the girls are at the bottom. Sharon is the mom of the girl. Right? So Sharon was a hairdresser towards the end of her life. And that's why she does the hairs for the girl on the show. Her last name would be Williams. And she was married twice because her first husband died. Right? So Sharon, her husband was Andrew Smith. I don't know who her husband is. Then she has the two boys. Did we get their names? Not sure if we did. But they're students. Her brothers probably are just there because they live there. You know, they got school tutoring with the sister because they had to move to be on set to support her. So the sister is this one. Her name was Cricket, which is a very interesting name. And her original last name was the one that no one can pronounce, but then they changed it to York because literally nobody can pronounce it. And she's an actor. Okay, those are ones we had already done, but we had locked those in before. Now I have an alternate picture of her. Now her dad's last name obviously would be this. Not sure what his first name is, and he was in the wedding photo, right? But he was also in the wedding photo. That's her first husband. I'm missing something on Sharon that would make a lot of sense. Because did they talk about Sharon's husband? Because she was Sharon Smith first? Or no, she was Sharon Smith after she got married. So her husband's last name is obviously Smith. And I think his name was Drew, right? Because they started the charity for him. Now, there is no Drew on this list, but there's an Andrew. So maybe Drew was his nickname? That would make sense. And the kids' last names would then also be Smith. So, Smith and Smith. Because the dad's last name is Smith. Now, did she mention her kids' names at all? Or no? Maybe she didn't. Let's look up Sherry's hair again. Because that was her business. So there's a Sherry's hair. Oh yeah, she talks about her 3 kids, Tony, Mark, and Cricket. Her oldest is Tony. Okay. So, all right, Tone. Oh, there's no Tony on this list. But there's an Anthony. So she likes to play with everyone has a nickname apparently. Nobody goes by their real name. And then Mark. Okay. So I think we finished this oh no, we didn't. Her second marriage. Who did she marry? Okay, I don't know. Baseball. Is there a second marriage? Our husband, Pete. All right, Pete. No Pete on this list, but there's a Peter. So we're going to assume that that's who she's talking about. All right, so working up the list, we have the bottom, but not the middle, and not who he had the original affair with. So going a little bit more up, Barb and Frank are obviously important here. So from what we remember about Barb, she was, I have to scroll. She was married to somebody who didn't give her the real name. So she said when she got pregnant at 15, he didn't even give her a real name. Now Barb, if it is Barb, she's in the right spot. Barb was a public speaker. So she was Barbara Williams. That's why the daughter has her last name. And she's a public, where is that? Public? I think that's accurate. And we know that that's Barb because she said I had her daughter Sharon. But she also referred to Sharon as a sister because she let the parents kind of like pretend raise her because she had her too young. So that kind of makes sense. So we're missing Barbara's parents. Now we have a picture of Frank. And his last name is also Williams, so maybe that's the mom. Is there a Frank? And he owned a construction company. He married Ophelia. Right? And she had the same last name. That's why she didn't have to change her last name when she got married. So that all makes sense, but I still think I'm missing someone. Do I have any pictures that are unused? I think that's still Barbara. It's the same look. So I'm missing someone. Yeah, we're still missing someone. Because if his last name was Williams, then the mom's last name had to be Williams. Because obviously they're not going to give him the Roottrees last name. Now, the only Williams we had was Bess Williams. I mean, she's the one that wrote the original book on him, and it was nothing but propaganda. So we're missing something with Bess Williams that we didn't have the first time. Now, she wrote Family Man, which we looked that up. I don't know. Somebody else has to help us here. Now, Lauren Roottree had wrote all those diaries the first time. And she wrote the 6 pieces. So maybe she talked about Elias's affair some more. I think we actually already have that in evidence. So she talked about Guy and he wasn't faithful, had a lot of parties. That we already knew. So it says there's a section where Sam speculates that Elias may have cheated on Gwyneth. Gwyneth was always much kinder to Sam than Elias was, and was the first to invite Sam to family parties. While there's no hard evidence, Sam always got the impression that Gwyneth was able to coerce Elias into allowing Sam back into the family because using some sort of leverage instead of being a natural course of events. She mentioned that Elias and Gwyneth were known to argue, sometimes about another woman. Sam also said her son Ernie once asked her, "Who's Beth?" because they overheard him yelling about them with that name. We looked into 2 Elizabeths, though, and they didn't work at the same time in the 20s. So when you look at the company records for the 70s, the Elizabeths didn't work in the 20s. So it's like there's no way either Elizabeth is the right person. It would have to be Bess. Maybe the kid misheard and it wasn't Beth, with the TH. It was Bess with an S. Maybe. So the only picture we have of Bess is the statue. I don't know where that picture has gone though. I'm like losing my mind. Did I lose it? Oh, no, it's right there. And she was an author. Wow. Not us not having a real picture of Bess. Okay. Alright. That was super confusing. That was a reach with the Bess thing. Cause like, so he cheated, so wow.
Hi again. I know you probably thought you were done.
Yeah, I am. I finished the tree.
But it turns out what you're doing here might have some pretty major repercussions on the family tree.
Okay.
Again. Also,
Neither of us can.
Well, what's the issue?
I'd call it a simple misunderstanding, but it's digging at the pit of my stomach. I just have a feeling. Clark?
Last week, let's just say being the president, sometimes people bring me things.
Just skip to the important part.
Right. One of our janitors brought me some hair she'd found in Ruby Spratt's trash. It was Bonnie Hudson's. Bonnie is Guy's sister. She'd sent us her hair to test potential Roottrees, since her DNA is closest to Guy's.
Why not use one of Guy's multiple children?
But Ruby threw it out, and I wasn't sure why she would have done that. Especially right before we began testing the tree you provided.
Because obviously she doesn't want to add nobody else to the mix.
When I asked, she told me she thought the samples needed to be fresh every time they did a test.
It seems really odd. Ruby was the one who convinced us to do DNA testing in the first place. She seemed so knowledgeable. I don't like it.
No, I don't.
You've done more of a deep dive on these people than anybody else has. Clark will keep a closer eye on the DNA tests from now on.
Okay.
You have an eye for anomalies. We need you to find the smoking guns.
Okay.
If there's anyone you're 100% positive can't be a Roottree,
Or any you've got definitive evidence are Roottrees, then we might be able to catch Ruby in a lie.
Okay. Alright, so we're not done. They gave us something new. They want us to find evidence to verify with dotted boxes who are almost certainly legitimate Roottrees, who are not likely Roottrees, and who are ambiguous. They're also suspicious of Ruby Pratt. Oh. So there's boxes next to everyone, and there's inconsistencies. I mean, looking at the boxes, I feel... I don't know, like we pretty much know what we need to know. Starting with Guy, I mean, to me, all his people are potential Roottrees, right? Because, you know, I mean, I can't say all of them, but I feel very strongly that all of the people are possible Roottrees. Because how could they not be possible Roottrees? We've connected a lot of dots here, like... You know what I mean? Right, because it's like, I feel like, you know, I don't know how to prove it. Those Guy ones are hard to go, so let's try Elias. Well, I don't know where to start, actually. No, he's the easiest. I feel like he's definitely a root tree. Oh, we're missing clues. Oh. We found 6 out of 15. Oh, so we don't have enough to say yes or no on him. We only have 6 out of 15 clues. Okay, well we have all 5 out of 5 for Garland. So I mean, I feel like we have to say yes, they're definitely root trees. We have all the clues. Right? I think he's a blood relative. Unless I'm missing something. Well, one of them probably isn't. So wait, let me go back. I feel like he isn't. The younger one doesn't look the same. Okay. When you look at Min, I feel like she is. But we're missing 2 clues. With Flavia, we're missing a clue. We have the clues for the Ford sisters. I feel like they are. Okay. With David Fellows, I feel like he is. Well, he doesn't really look like him though. And she was married at the time. She had a whole husband. So I feel like, I don't know, we might need the rest of his clues for that to work. With Mark, we're missing 2 clues. But I want to say Mark isn't, because ultimately he was found in a basket or remember that story she said about the basket? I don't feel like he's related. But the first one I think is for sure. So, Frank, I mean, I don't know. It's not clear because we don't even have a picture of Bess. We don't know anything, but we're missing some clues. That means there's some more searching here that's missing. And then these 2 people in the middle. So I said maybe, I said yes, no. I'm missing some stuff, I don't know. So for these other ones, I'm not sure. So let's see how they get the rest of these smoking guns. Because I'm missing something. Now on... Who am I missing something on? For David Fellows... I feel like we got everything. I don't know what else to look up for him. Because he was the root tree rift, right? Was him. And we do know that. We read that one for sure. So 5 Pez. Oh. The root of all evil. Did we look that up the first time? I don't know if we looked that up the first time. Celebrity lawyer with Stevie Whitlock. Let me go back. So the root of all evil is the album. Maybe look up the song. Oh, there we go. The only track, this track is the only new song on the album. It's hypocrisy for those that claim that money is evil. He thinks the only people who have money is evil are the people who have it. He talks about taking the root tree's wealth. Okay. I didn't receive any airplay. It's kind of clashing. He's from Portland, which I think we knew that. Okay, where else can I look him up that I haven't already looked him up? Can I look him up here? I think we did. Okay. Now, unless I'm missing more about the Roottrees Rift, I feel like we looked up a lot of it. But it's not giving me anything new, I think. Okay, so Ruby Spratt is part of our problem because she's suspicious. So she studied at she grew up in foster care, studied at Eastern University. She was in a couple of high-profile lawsuits. Let's see. She came on. How else can I search her? She's not from Butler, I don't think. She graduated top of her class. Her valedictorian speech was controversial. She had a perfect GPA. Wow. Where else can I search her? So she, in high school, made change to the foster care system. She's valedictorian and a Girl Scout, earning her the Gold Award. The Foster Fountain. Fountain, a small park in Portland. All change thrown in is donated to the foster care system. A website for Portland's Parks and Recs mentioned that the Fountain of Youth was originally conceived by Ruby Spratt. More than 100 businesses agreed to donate. That's cool. So, Fountains of Youth. Oh, it's the same thing. Okay. Let's look up Fountains of Youth here. Because I feel like, so we're learning more about Ruby Spratt. We're getting a lot of interesting information. There's a dedication ceremony. Mayor made a speech, ribbon cutting. They call out all the performers and speakers were foster care alumni, and most of them grew up together as close friends. Dirty Dave. Wasn't that Five P's name at one point? So she knew him before. They didn't just meet each other recently. Now she had, since we're questioning Ruby Spratt, she had told us that Annie Mom wasn't valid, that it was a hoax. But now I question it. It's a second high profile case. She's claimed she slept with Guy Hudson. Our daughter was a Roottrees, and it was Jane Doe Roottrees. And the DNA proved that her daughter could not be related. Each lawyer provided accurate samples. See, that's why I like I say, if Ruby's throwing away DNA, can we trust her? Is she trustworthy? Like, I don't know that I trust her now. I could be wrong, but I don't know. With him, I almost want to say no. Only because we're missing some clues, but I don't like the fact that he knew her before. He knew Ruby Spratt before he filed his lawsuit. So how do we know she didn't help him? She could have, you know. Now with her, I'm missing 2 clues. Her mom made the textile factory. Let's see if we can find that. It was called Lang Tai, I think. So 1979. Oh, they used IVF at the time. He wanted to have a child because they couldn't have one. He paid someone to have their child implanted in an older daughter who was unmarried. Let's look this person up. Oh, that's the company that did the IVF. There was a controversy. Whistleblower came forward to the government that said that they had been founded in China by a partnership involving American Chinese medical specialists who had built a facility in the U.S. They claim they would perform IVF when they did not. It would be an excuse for otherwise unexplainable pregnancy. They would fly their clients to America where they would stay for an extended period of time, then return to China with news of a successful IVF. Oh. Well then no. To me it sounds like she's not a relative. No shade for men. But if they lied about having IVF... Oh no, she is a relative because she lied about using IVF. They didn't use IVF. Is that what we're saying? I don't know what we're saying. Not sure what we're saying. Now the girls, we got all their evidence. I don't have to bother with that. Flavia. What am I missing for him? His mom was... Who was his mom? His mom was Sonia Alves, but she went by Nina Alves. Am I missing something with her? She did a lot of media due to lack of freedom of speech. She was very private about her identity and supposedly once used her connection to have a reporter fired for a rival network and blacklisted. The journalist claimed this was to shut down the story that he was about to do about her personal life, that her marriage was not her own choice. He claimed that she was essentially had her husband forced upon her as a child bride at 15. Also claims that past appearances with her husband have been for show, they don't live together, and she resents her parents for the arrangement. The final claim was that she made her money under the table during Brazil's dictatorship. So she seems to have a lot of issues. Flavio, it's not as cut and dry as we think. So I mean, it's possible he's a blood relative, simply for the fact that she never slept. If she didn't live with her husband and it was just for appearances, then it's definitely not his kid. So, was I missing evidence here? Okay, so I got 3 out of 3 for them. 3 out of 3 for him. 4 out of 4 for her. I have the evidence for him. I have it for him. I didn't have a ton for him, but he also had quite a bit. So Annie Mom still pulls up something for him that I don't have, and the Roottree Rift. So I'm missing 4 for him. I just don't know what the 4 even are. All your problems. I don't even know what else to search for with him. Unless I'm missing something. Because it's like I tried to search everything. Is there an article? Oh yeah, he did an article. Grew up in Portland. He's born to Felix Fellows. He changed his name some. But they swear that he did a DNA test, right? So I don't know. Not sure what I'm missing here. I don't have all the evidence for him though. I'm missing 2 for Clementine. Who am I missing? I don't know, but I feel like he's not a relative because the baby in the basket thing. And I feel like he is a relative. Frank, we're not sure. We're missing 1 piece on Frank. Now, he's so old, he may be in that book again. Lauren's original book. A Life Between Wars. Upon revisiting Lauren's book, there's a single passage that focuses on potential affairs in her immediate family. Because it was republished again. I mean, she republished the hell out of this book. A diary entry entitled Cruelty from Lauren Roottrees' diary from 1963 focuses on the relationship between her mother and her father. It mentions the subjects of affairs. I'm no stranger to true love. Jacob and I were married at an age that was deemed unfit for marriage, but he also had to enlist at an age that was deemed unfit for war. I had no choice. I knew in my heart our marriage was one for the ages. He and I would still be together today if not for Okinawa. It was almost 20 years ago, but there's still an emptiness in my soul. I don't understand my contemporaries. So many girls I went to school with have taken multiple lovers. So many of my girlfriends' husbands have been unfaithful. If I am to remain true to the ghost of a man with no chance of physical reciprocity, no potential for long conversation, how could it be so hard to love someone you can reach out and touch, someone you can joke with? I have not had to deal with such madness at home. My parents are a perfect match in every way. My mother's cruelty is a perfect fit for my father's general spite. In turn, Pop's status enables her incessant need to gloat and feel superior. I have grown up with their cruelty and disdain for each other my entire life. Even though my family remains unspared, they make fun of Grandpop and his family sayings, blood is thicker than syrup, but nothing's thicker than Elias. They mimic Grandma Gwen's lisp. And you can see kindness as her weakness. Eliath, please remember Tham. So she has a hard time with TH and the sound of S. Not even our family's maladies and religions go unmocked. Remember, God only puts one eye in miracle. I can say without a doubt in my mind that my parents have never had eyes for anyone outside their marriage or too self-centered to look astray. Well, that obviously isn't true because her dad definitely cheated. So, and if her mom had a lisp and couldn't say the S sound, when she accused him of sleeping with someone named Beth, it could have been Bess with an S. So that helped a bit. I won't say it was 100% helpful. Now, who are these people? That's still where I'm stuck, which is who are these extra folks who are in the middle? Now, we know Ruby lied about DNA tests, so she's the one that said Annie Mom was not a blood relative, and that they confirmed it with DNA testing. They confirmed they both did the DNA test at a joint press conference. Each party provided their samples. So if that's true, that she was eliminated by the company's lawyers, well, now we have to vouch her back in. So, because we see she's throwing away evidence or doing something with the evidence. Maybe she's not throwing it away. Let's look her up a different way. Pico T is messy, so they probably have... I know we read this article before, but, you know, they said that Annie Mom worked as a manager at the department store in North Carolina. Her daughter's name was Courtney May. And that they said that the woman that vouched for her was named Corrine S. has filed for bankruptcy. So that's interesting. So Annie Mom and Corrine S. must have been friends or known each other really well for her to vouch for her. If we look in the company records, maybe we'll go forward a few years. We're looking for a Corrine. Corinne Swartz and Beatrice Waltz were secretaries. So, Watts. So Corinne S. and Beatrice both left at the same time. Sounds like maybe they were friends. So maybe Beatrice Watts is the Annie mom, and that would mean her daughter is Courtney May Watts. So let's look that up. Let's look up Beatrice Watts. Okay. So no for her. What about Courtney May? So Courtney May has a simple website with black text on a white background and a few images. From the view counter, you can tell she's only one of a few hundred people who have visited. She's not shy about claiming she's Jane Doe Roottrees. As proof, she's posted an unobscure cover from the time she was featured on News Time, as well as a different picture of herself that appears to be a wedding photo. The website seems to be created in defense of her mother, who has been a target of public scrutiny. Under the headline, The True Story of Jane Doe Roottrees, courtesy of Courtney May Newton, formerly Watts, Courtney May writes, Everyone has everything wrong. My mom approached the Roottrees before 5 Pez was ever on the cover of News Time. Nobody took us seriously. They only listened to us after we appeared on TV. The site has a scanned letter from the Ruby Legal Group to Courtney May's mother, Beatrice. So there's Beatrice Waltz. In very polite legal terms, it seems to be accusing her exploiting their name and orders her to leave the Roottrees alone. There's data from a few weeks before the 5 Pez article and seems legitimate. Courtney May also discusses her mother's magazine feature in more details. Do you know how difficult it was to convince anyone to tell our story? My mom didn't want to show her face because everyone in the media we approached assumed she was lying because her story was just like the 5 Pez's, but my mom's story was first. Mom was advised by Ryan and Quirk to tell News Time that seeing 5 Pez's on the cover was what inspired her to go public. That's the only way News Time would agree to it and help her get on TV, but it's not true. Our story was first. Courtney's defenses continue, but much of it seems repetitive and useless. Towards the end of the page, she discusses the DNA test and defends her mother's character. My mom is amazing. She's the nicest woman in the world. She has diabetes and works at a department store, but still manages to help pay for my apartment in the big city so I can stay with my high school sweetheart. I got a degree in nursing, so I'm learning about DNA in college, and I'm starting to think it's all a lie. Mom is 100% confident there's no one else who could be the father. Either they did the test wrong, or the DNA is complete BS. She's not a liar. Well, if we're saying that Beatrice, well, we don't even have a picture of her, but let's say Beatrice Waltz is the mom, and she works as she works at a department store. We're saying the daughter is Courtney May, right? Is what we're saying, and her last name is also Watts. Well, not anymore because she married somebody named Newton. And she's a nurse, or she just finished nursing school. But that's a shame. That makes me think she is a Roottrees. And the only reason why I say that is because we know that Ruby messed with these DNA tests, so if the tests are not accurate, so May and Danny forever. Courtney May. Okay, so this is her. Where is this other picture from? Oh, I can lock in this other one for Barbara. And then if his name is Danny, it's probably Daniel, because these people love to have other names. Other than what their names actually are. But I'm missing a picture of the mother. Oh, that's the mother. So we have the mother and the daughter. That's the picture that was blurred out on the original cover of News Time. So that makes sense. Right? So we're trying to say that yes, she is a possible Roottrees. Because if she's telling the truth, that something is, she mentioned somebody. in this. Ryan and Cork told her to say a certain story. Ryan and Cork is an unremarkable law firm based in North Carolina, named after their senior partners, Winston Ryan and Gregory Cork. The firm handles mostly local cases and recently represented Annie Mom. Their website has a section about the case, including the scans of the DNA test proving that Jane Doe Rootree was not a Rootree. This is a DNA test from the website for Ryan and Cork. The test says there's virtually no match that Annie Mom's daughter, Courtney May, was a Rootree. It lists that DNA from a Jane Doe was tested against the DNA of Bonnie Clegog, who used to be Hudson, Guy's twin sister. Ryan and Cork, who were representing Annie Mom, have confirmed that the sample they sent to the Rootrees was definitely Courtney May's hair. The test is from a company called DNA Teco, and the doctors circled the results inside the paper. DNA Eco? I'm not sure. No. It's a DNA testing company. DNA testing is a relatively new phenomenon that allows scientific laboratories to prove a possible family relationship between two people. It's fairly cutting edge. The method in which they test samples has only become a standard in the last decade. According to their site, they're responsible for a DNA test that proved Felix Fellows was a Rootree, and even use it as an example of how DNA tests look. They use it to provide some information about their process. Whenever they take a sample in person, they put the name of the person on the test according to their legal ID, which is why it says David instead of Felix. Because Guy Hudson is dead and there's no known DNA source for Guy, they tested Felix's hair versus a hair sample sent from the Rootrees. It's listed as Jane Doe because it wasn't collected in person, but the Rootree company let them know it was from Bonnie Kellogg. That's why it says it's a paternal aunt test. The left and the right sets of numbers are basically signatures that perfectly match the DNA of the two people in question and nobody else. The way the test works is that certain parts of the signature are shared, then those two people are likely related. As far as you can tell, they're a legitimate company. They are legitimate, but it's weird, right? That's not true, or that it's not 100% true. We got the DNA Teco, and they did Felix's test, which now I believe is wrong. His test, I don't think, can be accurate. And the reason why I say that his test is not accurate is because, Ruby is messing with the DNA. So if she swears she gave the right hair and she didn't, then of course the test is going to come back as a no because she didn't give the right information. So this is the sample that proves that Felix is a Rootree. There's a 99% chance that David Fellows is related to the alleged aunt who's listed as Jane Doe. So it's like, I can't tell any reason why it wouldn't be him, but that doesn't make a ton of sense. Did I not mark everyone off? Oh, they want to know if these two are Roottrees, even though I thought we figured that out the last time. I wonder why I didn't grab them for me. I want to say yes, because don't they belong to Gwen? Aren't they Gwen's children? Unless I'm wrong, but I don't believe so. Oh, we only got two pieces of... Oh, Lord, we don't have no evidence on these two. We only have two pieces of evidence, though. Robert and Ronald. I'm missing some. That's not good. So what am I missing? Well, their dad was Wild Bill Williams. So let's go back to him, because that's, I think, part of the problem. So he was an actor known for his role in Fortune Favors the Grave. He did not make his appearance at the funeral. Because of his absence, there was rumors he must have already died, but a reporter tracked him down. He's in his 70s, still alive and in fine health. He even went on to say, I think it was Mark Twain who said, the rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. The few years I spent with Gwen were just one stop along my very long and complicated journey, as I have been with my life and career. The last time we spoke was when I signed the divorce papers. She asked me never to contact her or the kids again. I've always respected those wishes. They never reached out to me either, even as adults, so I assume they have some idea of why she hated me so much and the sacrifices she made on my behalf. I wish them well, and I'm sorry for their loss, but we've been strangers for 40 years. So I can confidently say they wouldn't have wanted me there. In fact, I'm confident my presence would have ruined it. Alright, well, let's look up Gwen, because she died and he didn't even go to the funeral, which is kind of crappy. Oh, she died in Paris 3 weeks ago. She died of pneumonia. Alright, let's look up Robbie Roottree, which is one of her kids. He was released from French prison after serving a few years for assault. The embezzlement and arrest were partially featured in the Six Pieces, and has since become more publicly infamous. He has not returned to the U.S., but when journalists reached out to him about the death of his mother, he had a blanket statement. The death of my mother was hard on our family. My brother and I, after spending time together caring for her and mourning, have finally made amends. It was highly transformative few weeks when it came to our friendship. I'm in recovery from my addiction, and a major aspect of that process I wish to stay private. Okay, what about Ron Roottree? Ron was announced as president of the Roottree during the Roottree Rift, and the next press release immediately reversed that announcement and instead stated that Ron and Clark would take over. A few weeks later, Ron was dropped from the title entirely. There's hundreds of articles about this development, but most of them are the retelling of basic details. Some veer into heavy speculation based on an article on Ron in Business Watch. Ron has also done some interviews saying the truth of what went on behind the scenes is not something he wishes to discuss. Okay, let's look R&R Productions. So that's the company. So if Ron didn't stay president, what did he do? R&R Productions seems to have no other projects listed in development other than the Guys Like Us remake. So he's remaking his mom's original movie. The Guys Like Us remake has been discussed a few times on a website about upcoming films called Movie News. The rumored cast is Cameron Diaz, Linda Ferrentino, and Chris O'Donnell. According to leaked news, the remake has been put on indefinite hiatus due to the director dropping out in the wake of a serious medical issue, even though that was only a rumor. Now, he was married to Penelope, right? So Penelope Tessa Green was his wife, and she's not coming up for me. Oh, Green had an E on it, huh? Let me see. Yeah, it had an E on it. Okay, comedian Penelope Tessa Green was part of a recent fundraiser at a Reno comedy club, The Laugh Lounge, about a month ago. The fundraiser was called Best Medicine, and it was to help find a cure for Huntington's disease. According to the website, she released a statement. Up until recently, I didn't know anything about Huntington's. In the last few months, I've gone from knowing nothing about it to learning more than any one person should ever have to know. Until less than a decade ago, it was impossible to predict that someone susceptible to Huntington's had the disease, but due to advances in medicine, tests have been developed. Now, maybe that's what her husband has, now that she's doing a non-profit type of thing for it. Oh, Huntington's disease is a neurodegenerative disease that most recognizably causes memory issues and uncontrollable movements in the limbs. After symptom onset, somewhere between age 30 and 50, those affected by Huntington's typically live another 15 to 18 years as their symptoms worsen. There's no cure. Huntington's is genetically passed from parent to child. The gene that causes Huntington works in such a way that if a parent has the disease, there's a 50-50 that their child will get it. Huntington's cannot be passed on recessively, meaning it cannot skip a generation. In other words, if someone has a mother or a father with the disease, but they themselves did not receive it from that parent, their child or grandchild and so on will never have it. Until the 1990s, it was impossible to test for. Instead, symptoms would appear later in life. This would often be after the person affected already had children. It would then make it impossible to know if their children had it, as it was a 50-50 chance. In 1993, due to determining which gene causes it, it's possible to test children for it and know if the disease was passed on or not. For a variety of complex reasons, however, children are considered unable to consent for such a test and therefore rarely tested. So it's a 50-50 you're going to get it. It sounds like Ronald has it, but Robert doesn't. Now, Gwen, they said, died suddenly of pneumonia and she was relatively healthy. But that doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe she had the disease also, and that's why she passed it on. But he doesn't have it. So that's interesting. Not sure what to make of that. Now they're older people, Wild Bill and Gwen. So maybe Starlet did something more about them, because I'm trying to understand what she died from, because it doesn't sound like it was pneumonia, unless I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but it just doesn't seem reasonable. These are old and haven't been updated. Okay, who else is on that tree? The kids would still be kids at this point, right? Well, we got a lot more evidence now than we had the first time. Because the first time we didn't have anything. I'm gonna look up Guys Like Us again since they're remaking it. Because I'm trying to understand. Guys Like Us is a 1953 comedy film in which two secretaries cut their hair short, but we knew that. Now, Leslie Florence and Harrison Lane. Is that important? Leslie Florence was the other actress in Guys Like Us. She was in small supporting roles. She was generally thought of as good, but she got second billing to Gwen. After the success and acclaim, she retired from Hollywood almost immediately after her co-starring role. Not much is known about her until Guys Like Us was re-released right at the tail end of Roottreemania. Recently, as a part of a myriad of articles, it came out that she died of a disease known as Huntington's in the late 1960s. So Gwen's co-star died of Huntington's, and we know it's genetic. So I feel like he's not a Roottree for that reason. Maybe she adopted her co-star's baby, because Gwen didn't have it and Wild Bill didn't have it. So Robert doesn't have it. That would make sense. But if he has it, it can't be from these two, because it doesn't skip a generation. So they don't have it. The grandpa don't have, like, nobody in the line has this. So I don't know how that would be possible. Did I mark everybody who had a possible box next to them? Yeah. So how do I tell them that I'm ready? Is there a way to tell them I'm done? Or am I just supposed to guess? Unless I have something wrong about her. Oh, I'm supposed to click I'm ready. Haha. I knew that. Okay, so we did... Oh, we're missing optional entries. I don't know what optional entries I could have found.
Beatrice and Courtney May. Clark, can you swing another test against Bonnie's DNA?
This time I'll be sure to have them verify both samples in person.
Yes, that would be very smart.
Using the family tree you filled out, as well as DNA tests, we were able to uncover the truth behind all the inconsistencies. Clark's handling the business, but I've come to thank you and fill you in on everything we've learned. Buckle up, because it's been one heck of a week. Actually, that's an understatement. It's not every week you discover your family company is being sabotaged by someone they trusted. But that's the kind of time we've been having. Like I said, buckle up. Maybe grab some popcorn. We'll start with Guy Hudson. Guy had a frankly ridiculous number of potential children. What shocked me is how many graduated from potential to confirmed.
Right, because I mean, this man had 8. 8, which is ridiculous.
We can even prove he was aware of them. The smoking gun was how he used company money to pay off a lot of women.
Right.
He hid it with a method inspired by his idol, Elias. 5-piece flavors. The flavors he was paying to research were a ruse. He developed flavors based on the initials of the women he was paying. Which was really stupid, considering one of their names started with X.
Oh, messy.
Let's start with Christine. Guy was paying her under the name Caviar, but there were some other clues. James was born 9 months after Zach's party. Christine was there with Guy, and when she got pregnant, she panicked. Steve stepped up. He even turned it into one of his recipe stories.
Oh.
Not all of Guy's affairs led to offspring. He may have slept with Robin Martin, but she didn't have children, so we'll never know. Also, not every child of Guy's affair partners were his. Robert Garland was born after his parents had already moved to Boston.
Okay, so one is and one isn't.
Skipping Beatrice for now. Up next is Lang Xin-yu. When Guy showed up in China, she was into America. And Americans. Dare I say redheads, even? When she got pregnant, her father paid key genes to fake IVF. They claimed her sister was unable to conceive.
I figured she
But
was
her
lying.
sister and Jerry had their own son, Mark.
Right, so she is Guy's kid.
Sonia Alves was soon after. Nia was married at a very young age to a much older husband.
Right, but it was all appearances. They didn't even live together.
She resented him. I don't blame her. They allegedly spent no time together in private. Guy was in Brazil during Christmas 1979. It's the only Christmas not in the records. Flavio was born 9 months later, and like the others, Guy started paying Sonia.
These people need to invest in condoms. No shade. Well, at least we were right, though.
Last was Susan Ford, hired to translate for Guy's overseas trips. It's easy to read into Guy's donation to her school, but there's no definitive proof there. She and Guy were witnessed together near the end of his life. Susan's husband was convinced he couldn't be the father of her daughters. Guy, though, paid double. The price of twins.
I didn't even catch the initials with the flavors.
So, what about 5Ps? Felix Fellow's mother, Joanna, doesn't have a 5 pieces flavor. On top of that, his story doesn't really add up.
Yeah, she quit after a week or two.
His mother already left the company by the time Guy became president, and his lyrics indicate he was born sometime around 1975.
I never found 17 magazines.
Alone, that wouldn't necessarily prove it. But there are some suspicious
Yes.
connections between Felix and the company's current
Right,
lawyer.
she was
Ruby
friends
Spratt.
with him and they were both in foster care.
They both grew up in Portland, in foster care. And according to the local paper, they definitely knew one another.
Exactly.
Ruby was the one who approached the Roottrees to begin with. It was all a setup.
Yeah, it's so frustrating.
Ruby and Felix saw my book's challenge to the Clancet Trust as an opportunity. His mother really had worked for Roottree, and Ruby was a respected lawyer. She exploited my family's greed, worked her way into control of the trust, and ensured Felix got a piece. But they made some mistakes along the way.
Yeah, they did.
If you look at the 2 DNA tests that Ruby handled, they were both supposedly tested against Bonnie Hudson.
Right.
But the 2 signatures that should both represent Bonnie don't match. After Clark and I confronted her, Ruby lawyered up. Ironic, I know.
Oh, I didn't even catch that either.
We suspect Ruby had Donatico test Felix against his own mother's DNA. He had a hairbrush of hers. They sent the female sample in remotely. On the second test, Bonnie's sample was tested locally, but Courtney May's was not. Ruby's been throwing away samples. We think she sent her own hair instead of Courtney May's, but it could have been anyone's. Ruby and Felix were in cahoots. As for why, they were both advocates of wealth redistribution.
Right.
A noble effort. But once they controlled the family fortune, they became just as greedy as the worst members of my family. The money corrupted them.
That typically is what happens.
They were so eager to personally wield the wealth for their own cause that they sabotaged any other claims.
So he's not a relative, which is what I figured.
That finally brings us to Anonymom, aka Beatrice Watts. Her tales of guys' parties and payoffs were true. She even approached Ruby before 5Ps was on news
Which
time.
we figured that out later.
Ruby used Beatrice's truths to make Felix's lies feel real, then ruined the DNA test so that Beatrice looked phony in the public court of opinion.
Exactly.
I feel worst for her in all of this.
Oh, so she is a kid.
While Ruby and Felix stole the show, there were some other potential new family members as well.
Right.
Miracle Roottree was less of an open and shut case. That said, it's very likely he had a son with Mary Beth Clementine.
True.
Not Stuart. Mary Beth adopted him before she ever set foot in Butler County. That leaves Mark. The timeline fits. He showed up about 9 months after Mary Beth visited Miracle, and the basket baby story is a bit too convenient.
Right.
If that's not enough on its own, he was also bailed out by the sister of Edith Roottree, Miracle Jr.'s wife, after she changed her name to win that silly contest.
What contest?
Our best guess is that Mark was told by his mother whose son he was, and used that fact to put some pressure on Miracle Jr.
Right.
We have no real proof of that, but nothing else really makes sense for why they'd be connected in that way.
Oh, so Stuart wasn't, but Mark was.
Elias's affair was the most ambiguous.
Right. It was very hard to track that down.
Gwyneth was able to coerce Elias to do things he wouldn't have otherwise done, like pressure to include me in the family. My son even mentioned them arguing about someone named Beth. Combined with Gwyneth's lisp, it's possible the name was actually Bess. Unfortunately, all we know about Bess Williams is that she wrote his book and died not long after, leaving her only son an orphan.
Correct.
The timeline fits with Wildcat, but there's no record if she had any other relationship. Honestly, I wouldn't say we had enough evidence either way. I wouldn't be surprised if Elias cheated. Of course, I'm a bit biased. Regardless, we haven't gotten in touch with any of the Williams clan yet. That means we haven't been able to do a DNA test. As Clark mentioned, from here on out, all of our DNA tests will be in person for both parties.
Yeah, we're not sure.
Lastly, we have a bit of a curveball. Ron Roottree isn't related to us by blood. Gwyn was definitely pregnant, so it's likely Robbie is. When Ron and Robbie went to visit their mother at the end of her life, something changed. Additionally, there have been a few rumors circling around Ron. RR Productions canceled the Guys Like Us remake due to the director's illness.
Right.
At the same time, Ron's wife Penelope began doing benefits for Huntington's disease, stating that she had become familiar with it. Huntington's is the same disease that Gwyn's former co-star Leslie Florence had. It's passed from parent to child. It can't skip a generation.
Right. We figured that out.
Because Gwyn and Wild Bill didn't have Huntington's, and Ron seems to, it's impossible Gwyn was his mother. I recently confirmed all this with Ron.
Oh.
At the end of her life, Gwyn told Ron the story. Leslie and Bill had an affair the same year Leslie learned she had Huntington's. Leslie got pregnant.
Oh, so say this raised it as her own.
Leslie wasn't likely to survive to see her child grow up. And even if she did, she didn't want to be a burden. She begged Gwyn and Wild Bill to adopt her child. Gwyn did. Mere weeks after she found out she was having her own son, she also took in Ron. Wild Bill was a problem. Unreliable and a serial adulterer. Gwyn divorced him and never saw him again.
Right.
Gwyn had already told Starlet she was pregnant, so it never really made waves when people saw her with a child in Paris. There was gossip during her divorce when she was discovered to be pregnant again. In actuality, it was the final months of her only pregnancy. To lay low, she stayed in Paris long enough that even her own family never had reason to question the timeline. It's one heck of a story, and frankly, nobody could be expected to piece the timeline together.
Girl. Impossible.
Not with what few mentions of Gwyn's past have survived. But the Huntingtons itself? That's proof. Ron suing Robbie to remove him from the Clancid Trust was a huge moment in my story, and a major catalyst for this entire investigation. Finding out that it's been pretty much backwards this whole time has been a bit surreal.
Right?
So that's where we're at. Looking over the information you sent us was useful. Without your tree, I'm not sure we would have ever discovered Ruby. All this information, this entire story, it's a lot, in more ways than one. Some of it has the potential to destroy marriages and ruin relationships.
Yes, it does.
We're handling it all very, very carefully. But we couldn't have gotten here without you. And with that, I guess our tale has finally, truly come to an end. What a strange one it was.
Right? This is the most in-depth game I think I've ever played. I've put like 14 hours into this game between the original Roottrees Are Dead and Roottreemania, and oh my goodness, this has kept me on the edge of my seat. It is one of the best whodunit kind of murder mystery type games I've ever played. I really have been so glad that I found this game. I hope we get more games like this from this developer. I have really felt like I was taken on a ride. And I learned something about myself, that my attention to detail could be much better. I missed a lot of clues. I had to go back and forth rereading things over and over and over again. My note system on paper did not work.
No words can express how grateful I am to you for untangling this mess. Honestly, I've had enough of my family's eccentricities and scandals for one lifetime. I imagine you have as well.
Yes, I'm exhausted, girl.
And if not, well, there's always Elias's and Gwyneth's brothers and sisters.
Oh, girl, I'm exhausted.
Attention.
Right, like, don't even do that to me about another one.
Coming at you from the real world.
But yeah, I've absolutely adored this. This game is so much fun. I'm so happy to have played this. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. Did you come up with the same conclusions about who was a potential root tree? What did you think of the Roottrees Are Dead and Roottreemania? I'm probably going to do a separate video giving a full review of my thoughts, because now that I've put in, like I said, almost 15 hours into this game, I've absolutely loved this. This is so cool.